Welcome to KaPOOF, my big chance to explore one of the technologies that really got a big boost during the COVID, the pandemic. I'm Frank Watson. I'll be hopefully joined by Tom Probasco and John Lowe. And we are old guys, older guys. John Lowe, he probably qualifies as old. He's like 95. Tom, he's just a kid. He just retired. Me, I'm 81 years old. I'm not 80 years old. I'm not 79 anymore. And here we go, just taking a look and enjoying playing with the technology. And we're going to start playing right now. Here comes John Lowe. John, I see your name up there. I'm waiting on that picture to come in and hear from you. So anyhow, we get our name from the fact that we go right up until the free Zoom account cuts us off. And that can be at some really interesting places. And when we get cut off, you're free to continue the conversation. Hello, John.
There I am. And there you are.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Well, I'm pretty good this morning. Thank you. And is Tom with us at all this morning?
Looks like his name just popped up, so I think he's going to join us.
Yeah, I gotta adjust my camera a little bit here.
Oh yeah, I've just got to get things adjusted there. All right.
Me too. Well, it's good to see you too. We missed a little bit of time there, and
yeah,
back again, right?
Yeah,
very good to see both of you. I was just explaining to any possible viewers of our effort here. We are recording and preparing to pass this on exactly what Zoom is and how it got its name. So with that said, it's good to see you guys.
Yes, you too, Frank.
And I managed to get back from recording with Pat Baker in the lobby here at Sycamore. I ran right up until like 9:20 and got back, scheduled a meeting, and got you your invitations, and everything worked the way that I've learned to work it. I'm sure there are other ways of doing it, but you got your invitations, and here we are at 9:30, whatever it is.
9:33, my computer says.
Okay.
So, yep, you're doing well.
So I'd appreciate a little pat on the back, fellas.
Well, yes, indeed.
Consider yourself patted.
You got the system worked out, and that's a great feeling, I know.
It is a great feeling. It worked out as far as I need to take it to get us together for a good morning chat, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's a blessing to be alive and to be, and that's a big word for my thinking, to be, to exist. When we begin our lives, somewhere along the line, we become conscious, do we not? Somewhere along the line, conscious?
Yes.
And we become aware that we are. I am. That is a miracle in itself. It's amazing. I don't know if many other creatures, I think other creatures do have some awareness of— but to know that we are, and to to be aware of it and conscious of it. And then to realize that, well, I'm limited. Here I am, but I'm limited. And what does that imply possibly?
Yeah.
There's an unlimited. So I'm finite, there's the infinite. And then we realize this very easily. Then as we go along in education, so we'll learn about such things as mathematics. And that really moves into the direction of infinite, negative and positive, infinites.
Yeah.
And then we have our material world, and it's always changing. Unlike math, it's always moving. And Plato said something like this, that the physical world is always moving. It's always process, moving. Even the mountains are on a move. You know, they're crumbling. As the song goes, the mountains crumble, and then you have sand, and then you have the waters, and so forth and so on. But the physical world is always moving, and we're part of that physical world. But then at the same time, we can be conscious of mathematics. And we can be conscious of the intellect, and we can be conscious of justice, and we can be conscious of love. We can be conscious of beauty. And these all go back to Plato, incidentally, that we have a world of the spiritual, the mental, of the mind, which or universal things that do not change. Truth is truth. Mathematics is there. It's there. It's not something we create. We latch onto it, so to speak. And to know that the world is changing, yes, and we can be aware of that. And there's such a thing of values of living that we come to know quite quickly. The child for the mother, the love, the dependency there, and then back and forth. And then the idea of beauty, that there is awe and wonder and splendor in what's created in just being alone. To be alone, you know, not to be alone, but to be alone. So anyway, I just throw that out as a little bit of thinking that I like the idea of the hierarchy of what is if we're talking about the infinite, we start with our finite being, then if we go the direction of the infinite, what's the highest good then? What is the highest in the sense of goodness? So anyway, I'll throw those ideas, see what you think.
Well, I think we may have to rename our effort here. We may, with introductions like that, we may have to call it KaPOOF. Instead of, you kind of get the kaboom and then you get the poof. So KaPOOF.
Well,
You just jumped right in there, didn't you, John?
yes.
I think along with that, of the subject of change and all, the change in the analysis you sent me of the book Dominion, and talking about how we live in a Christian context, a world that has been so dramatically influenced by Christianity, that we pick at Christianity without realizing that the tools we use to pick with are Christian tools. And I was very impressed by that. I've shared it in a couple of places.
Well, I think he brings out that the water we swim in is Judeo-Christian.
That's Tom Holland, right?
Yeah, right.
Did you look at that, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah. You just, it's hard, when you're born to that, not everybody is consciously, but even back when I was attending the Xenia Friends Church, I was aware of people that didn't go anywhere, and yet you're still influenced by that, as John says, and as the author says, we are immersed in that culture. I don't subscribe to the argument by politicians who try to say this is the way it must be and all others get out of the way. There's some of that going on. But the fact of the matter is, that is largely the background of many, whether they were churchgoers or people who identified as Protestant or Catholic. Still, Christianity is largely, we are of that.
Yes.
Of that origin.
Yes. I think that certainly Western culture has incorporated Christian ideas of what is acceptable and what is not, to acceptable ideas of God or a greater a wholeness, that there is a source of all, and whether we see that as all of us as humanity or in a more cosmic sense, but there are certain laws involved in the universe, or in all that is, that find such things as killing babies to be unacceptable, such things as enslaving and oppressing people to be unacceptable, and that has become not just a Christian viewpoint, but that those tenets of the Christian faith have been incorporated in our Western culture. But then those, the churches and the church being made up of humans often don't, people, individuals, and sometimes organizations don't live up to those, and those who attempt to place themselves outside of the Christian context by saying, well, I don't belong to a church, I don't believe in a God, fail to see that the church that they don't believe in and the God that they don't believe in have shaped the culture that gave them the values that they're using to criticize the church and its particular failures. So that's a very problematical thing, because if you give up the church, what do you replace it with? And how do you replace the passion that people feel for a God of a God of mercy, a God of love? Can humanity come up with something better than a universal law that says the most important thing that we have to do here is to love God however we conceive of God, and to love and serve each other? If we accept that premise, then there is hope in the world that we can learn to get along and be at peace. But if we don't accept that premise, what do we replace it with? Peace through superior firepower?
Might makes right.
Might makes right.
I mean, that's kind of what I understood John's article, that's kind of what it was juxtaposed against.
If you take God out of the picture, then what takes its place?
Exactly.
And then it, as if I follow Nietzsche, philosopher, and the Dostoevsky, the Russian author, in Brothers of Karamazov, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Incidentally, I think, did you ever see the movie Brothers of Karamazov
I have not.
with Yul Brynner? And let's see well, anyways, great movie taken from that book. And then if you take the idea of the highest good that I've been trying to push toward, also the highest, if you take that out, what takes the place? And Nietzsche, even he himself talked about the death of God. And if you take God and Christ out of the picture, then anything goes. And that's what we're sort of facing today. We're in a cultural conflict today. And there are those who I think have a distorted view of religion on one hand. And then you have, on the other hand, there's that extreme. Then you have the other extreme, which about anything, like, in a way, almost anything goes. And that even that the culture itself creates the value. And therefore, what is behind that culture that creates the value? Power. It's the very thing that Tom brings out there. The power then becomes the end in itself. Might makes right. And then there are those even further worse yet, let me say it that way, and say, well, it's up to the individual, because there's nothing natural that is built into us to be good or whatever. It's up to you individually. It's up to every individual to decide what's right and wrong. It's up to you alone. My way only. Doesn't matter what other people think at all. You can really go that far.
Yeah, what
You make up your own. In other words, you make up your own values. Doesn't matter. Excuse me, Tom. Go ahead.
Well, you do, those who make a study of culture, what did exist. I mean, it wasn't just before Christianity, when it was, well, go back far enough, there weren't even the Greek and Roman gods. But prior to that time, was life just mostly chaotic? And I think even back, in our kind of our human cousins, Neanderthals, living in small groups, it's virtually impossible to know. You can know about them physically more and more all the time. But what was their social life have? I mean, there most certainly was one. But what was it? I mean, even the considerations of them, whether they buried their dead or not, are a debate. It gets pretty fundamental, whatever I mean by that.
Well, I looked in a certain way. I think if we look back before human civilized proto civilizations, the place where humans started leaving behind their place in the world of nature as natural creatures, something we might look at as being in the garden, and started deciding on what was good and evil, and becoming aware of ourselves, aware of the fact that we would die, and
Well, I think that
let me
Yeah, go
continue
ahead.
the thought here, John.
Go ahead.
When we reach back into when we lived more natural lives before the advent of modern killing techniques,
Mhm.
there was an order. It was not chaotic in the sense that nature imposed an order. We were a species within a world of species. But when we left the garden, we became a breakout species, uh, and that's when the true chaos began. It was whoever could come up with the best way to kill and dominate, uh, other than through the basic things that we were born with. You know, who can come up with the best way to create weapons, the best way to create strategies for uh, removing competition.
I think your analysis is very good there, Frank. Uh, you take I don't know if you've heard of Jordan Peterson or not,
Yes.
but he follows the Jungian psychology of tracing dreams and myths. And if you remember, also Joseph Campbell made a great study of myths, the power of myths, following Jungian psychology. And they believe that there's within the human being, in humanity, there's what you call a collective unconsciousness that sort of uh, registers within humanity itself, and it comes out in dreams and myths. And biblical scholars and people like Jordan Peterson take a myth like Genesis, there you mentioned, and brings out that this reveals deep within the psyche of humanity. And there are other myths similar. What is there? There's creation, there's innocence, bliss, survival, and then there's the fall, the freedom's there, and uh, male, female, yin yang, as far as the Taoists would say, um, or anyone who certainly is aware of that duality. And then with the fall, then creation was good, but was it perfect? Would it have been perfect if they had obeyed the Creator? But as it was, it awaited that kind of assent to say yes. So therefore, the creation then was good, still good, but imperfect. And then man was to create, and then to name the animals, and to cultivate the land, and so forth and so on, as if to say that humanity was to share in the creation of whatever was to come, for good or for bad. And then you had Cain and Abel, the whole problem with humans countering one another. What's the good and the evil? There's some good there with Abel, natural good, and then you have Noah, and he's good, and so there's good and bad within the sort of the human nature mixed in. So anyway, I would just add that to what you were saying, Frank. That's very well put.
I once ran across an evaluation of the story of the garden and the fall. Uh, it was a talk by a rabbi, it may have been Rabbi Friedman, who is a funny and very wise man. But he talked about it. He described it as being a kind of a setup, in that man was supposed to leave the garden. That this was part of God's plan, and when you look at at how the world works, everything changes, everything evolves. That's how the plants depicted in back of you, Tom, evolved. They didn't just, they weren't all created at that particular genetic, biological, and geographical space. So it seems to me that differentiation is a critical part of creation. And if you look at what differentiation is, it is the stuff that evolution is made of. And that seems to be built in to what everything is. So seeing that species, plants, animals, the shape of the earth, everything changes. We are aware of the change. We know how to make tools and to make strategies to affect changes. And given the fact that we have that knowledge, we have choices about how we use that knowledge and how effectively we learn to organize ourselves to be co-creators in both the immediate sense and in the grander sense of nations and perhaps planets or galactic empires. Where does it stop? I don't know if it does. If you look at through the large telescopes, they have yet to come to a dead end sign. There's no place where it says, yep, this is the end, this is all of it. There is no more. And that when we come to empty, when we come to nothingness, yeah, you know, there's a thought that has occurred to me, the phrase "nothing is forever," and that we all, the things that are the 10,000 things that emerge from the Tao emerge from nothingness, and that forever gives room for infinite growth, change, and we are left with the decisions, or the decision of what am I going to do for today? Am I going to wake up and look at all this thing that extends from me? I am. Here I am. Daggone. All this, I got a refrigerator at home. You know, I got a window, and outside the window there's trees. I got inboxes. I got a banjo. Now I can relate to the banjo. You know, it makes noise. I got noise. I got ears. Wow. Here I am, came out of the nothingness of sleep, walked into a miracle. What do I do with this day? First of all, I say, I am really happy to be here.
Amen.
and I'm going to try to make it a best day I can for me and for wherever it was that I sprang from, and for everybody I meet, because the happier this world is, the happier I am.
You're very close to what I would say was the top of that hierarchy I've been talking about. And you're here, and I'm here, and Tom, we're here, and I know you're here, and Tom, I know you're here, and we're getting to know each other little by little, opening up a little here, there, and yonder, a little something of the other guy coming out, coming through. And I would hope that we could come to the place we would call that love.
Yeah.
And there are one or two people who have looked in on us, and I don't know how much. One of them is my son, Aaron Butcher, and I can't tell you how happy this makes me to have my son take the time to check in on what a couple of old guys are saying and talking about. I'm, maybe someday, if he listens to this particular one and shows some interest, we can include him in a Zoom call. He
Absolutely.
Sure.
he is I think aware of the miraculous nature of existence, and the sort of person he is, he's capable of making large jumps. He met a woman online from Ireland. They fell in love online. They talked for like 3 years. He wrote her a song, 5,000 Miles to Derry. And he went to work, saved his money, and went there. And came back, saved his money, and went again. and it's just amazing to me. Both of my sons, my son CJ passed in 2018, but he was also capable of making big jumps.
Yeah.
But to have him show an interest in what we're doing, that's I'm used to setting the best example I can and being ignored for the most part, because everybody's busy and doing what they do, and I think that I've got one other prospect that I can think of, and that's a fellow by the name of Victor, and Vic is he is a cosmic level thinker, but to engage younger people,
Yeah.
is something I really enjoy that.
And I think there are a lot of young people that are looking for this. There are a lot of young people looking for it. They're a bit hungry.
The problem is that most of them, I think, are looking for it in sound bites.
Right.
Some things require study. Some things require a effort over time, endurance, persistence, and discipline. And now I was talking when Pat Webb and I did our morning inspirational video, ran about 9 minutes, I think. It's a short form. But he mentioned that I had talked about the necessity of discipline, and how my present circumstances have required the discipline from me to manage life for Barbara and myself. I'm Barbara's memory support, and we're still a team. and we enjoy the same, mental challenges, and we have the same kind of a relationship with God, but I'm the memory device, and she can see so much better than me. It's like she's my scout. She looks around, see if there's anything coming off in the distance, and then reports it. And it's my job to remember it's there. So anyhow, wandering a bit here into my own particular circumstances.
It's good wondering. It's good wondering.
It's in all of this, I'm hoping and praying and intending to influence a few people through our conversation here, and partly by the fact that we dare to have it. There's this technology, Zoom, and here we are. All of us are over 65, right? Tom, you're the closest. Are you over 65?
Oh, well, I'm 69. I'll be 70 before the year's out.
Well, you're just a kid at Sycamore, and in
Right.
and when you turn 70, you'd probably be old enough to date.
Yeah. Well, and does John know that Victor, who's younger than me, lives there?
Victor lives here.
Yeah.
Victor is I call him he's like a semi-adopted son, and he is one of my thought leaders in many fields. Um, uh,
I met him once. I met him once with you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the centering prayer sessions.
yes.
Okay. All right. So you
Victor
have
doesn't talk. Victor doesn't talk a whole lot until he's got something to say. Then you can't shut him up. He's going to say it when it comes time. But he's involved. He's involved in relating to the and taking care of the business with the community, the church, and the people that we support in Kenya. And that was, I consider that a sacred contact that I was led to and by Providence, and Victor manages that because I don't have the mental slack to do that and to keep up with Barbara and myself. And where I brought up today the possibility that there may be a need to create a not-for-profit here in the U.S. because if that community does what they continues to do what they're doing, they are spreading the gospel. They're extending themselves as a church, and with the extending themselves as a church, they are saying to people, if you become saved, if you put on the mind of Christ, it should make a difference in how you live your life. Well, saying this to people whose lives have been disrupted by European culture without the benefits of being included in the culture, having their culture destroyed, and the dominating European big gun culture not replacing that with opportunities for them to enter into that culture. They're simply a dominated people. Has not given them the opportunity that the faith community offers. And an example, of a difference. There was a fellow I knew as a child named Jamie Graham who was rough with his wife and kids. He drank, he smoked cigarettes, liked to, you know, he was not the, you know, he was a next door neighbor. He got saved. And I remember my mom and dad talking that he quit smoking. He quit drinking. He started treating his wife and children with respect. Many years later, I visited him in the church that he and my parents were involved in the founding of at Fairhaven Christian Church in Johnson County. And I had a chance to talk